Good afternoon, good evening even. This is the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. It is Monday, the 9th of February at 7 p.m. and we are in the Bury's Council Chamber in Godalming. Welcome to everybody, my slightly light committee on numbers tonight from the looks of it. So let's start at the beginning. Any apologies for absence and substitutes?
Good evening, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Peter Martin, Councillor John Rubini and Councillor Jackie Keane, and we have Councillor Michael Goodridge substituting for Councillor Martin.
Thank you. We note that the minutes of the meeting only held 2 weeks ago. They will be brought to the next committee. Agenda item. Oh, please comment.
So I think Councillor Murray, did you not receive his apologies tonight?
He's not on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Any questions from members of the public or from members?
Sorry, no, there hasn't been any questions from members or from members of the public.
Great, thank you. So I'm actually, just before we move on to Cranley Leisure Centre, I'm actually just going to talk through, let's get agenda number 12 out of the way, the committee work programme. I don't intend to go through that in any level of detail because we did it 2 weeks ago, but just to comment one on the water safety item. Alex, you might want to give a comment on that. And then generally, I just wanted to say that I am hearing the committee's feedback about workload and your concerns. I have raised those concerns directly with the leader, with the CEO and with the monitoring officer. I've yet to receive a response. I have also, we as a committee have agreed we'd like it to be referred back to the Standards Committee.
To the Joint Committee on
Joint Constitutions Committee. Obviously, that's not going to resolve any of our workload crisis in the short term, though. And Councillor Gale, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I did send an email back to committees about this particular problem. We're being bombarded with all sorts of very big documents at the moment, some too big to even send round to people who want a paper copy. There was one copy left in the members' room. It was 200 pages. I just really think we're seeing what the result is of cutting this down to just one committee from the two. And I'm really not sure we are giving our residents the overview and the scrutiny that they do deserve. I certainly haven't read some of the papers tonight, and I apologise for that, but some of them only came today, and I do work. So this is one of the problems, and we're not being given the time, and I think it should be looked at very seriously what's happening here. Thank you.
Councillor Davidson.
Sorry, if I can just add to that. Associated with the difficulty with all these papers which we're receiving, I received none. I requested some while back when there was a survey of those councillors who wanted to have paper copies, and I said yes, and I'm not receiving any. And I suspect I have, when it comes around to the full council, if the current behaviour continues, I will not receive full council meetings either. I would ask that the commitment to provide paper copies continues and that they are dispatched timeously.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm noting nods from Councillor Barker-Lomax, and I know we've discussed it today, Councillor Lawson. I'm told actually that apparently this may be a new protocol that hard copies are not being issued, and that's something I think we do really need actually urgent clarification on, because I believe most councillors still believe that they are able to receive hard copies in the post if they request them. I'm not going to be able to answer that question now, but what really worries me is that multiple councillors have not been able to read the documents which are being scrutinised tonight. I think that is a failure of our scrutiny. Not Councillor Pollock. Alex Pollock.
Okay, so yes, we haven't posted in the post any agendas for some months now to members, because we were finding that whenever we did, they didn't arrive in time for the meetings in question. But what I will do is send a message to all members clarifying what the policy is, and if we think that there is scope to return to putting agendas in the post, as well as putting them as we currently do in your physical pigeonhole if you've asked for them, and we email them to all members, and they're available publicly online as well. So those members who've requested paper, we make sure that they're available in the relevant pigeonhole, but we haven't posted any for some time now, because we were finding that they kept arriving after the relevant meeting anyway, which is just a waste of money and resources. But what I think we haven't done is sent an email to all members to explain that that will be the position from now on, for which I apologise. So we'll explore that, and we'll make sure we get a clear answer. As for the volume of work, you'll notice that the exec agenda tomorrow evening is an enormous agenda. And what's happening right now is a really large volume of work is going through the council, the system as a whole right now. And scrutiny is experiencing that just as the exec is. So you've had 2 meetings where you would normally have had 1 in order to help us manage that volume as best we can. But it's not a surprise that we can't handle that very easily, because the volume of work coming through the executive is very high. And I assume it's to do with being in the pre-election period and the onset of LGR, and wanting to make sure that we get certain things done before the roles and responsibilities of the council change slightly. And yes, just to clarify, we've referred the issue of the single committee to the Joint Constitutions Working Group. As I said last time, this was a decision made by full council quite recently to change the structure of its committees. And I remember it being a very close vote. So I would expect there to be around half of the councillors on the council who don't agree with that decision, because they voted against it in council just a little while ago. The decision was made by councillors, though, by majority vote, to change the system. We will refer it back to the to the Constitution Review Working Group to see if there's something that could be done, and whether it should be done, and they'll pick up that discussion about the structure in due course.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, sadly, that does mean that we won't be getting any positive change anytime soon. And I think these issues about lack of scrutiny are really important. Councillor Davidson, you want to come back, and then
Can I
Councillor
come back
Gale.
on the lack
Yeah.
of papers? I don't see why I should have to drive 20 miles round trip to pick up papers before a meeting. If I claim for that expense, that would be sort of £9, I think. And also, it's a waste of my own time. The papers are being produced. It strikes me as being a small matter to put them into an envelope and post them off. The postal service where I am in Haslemere is excellent. In fact, I get deliveries, in fact, 4 or sometimes even 5 times in the week. So I think that's a complete load of bunkum. And I think that I didn't agree to this change in policy or protocol. I would like to have those papers back with me as a councillor so I can be properly prepared for meetings.
Quickly.
Can we let Councillor Gale speak, and then maybe you can come back on both?
Well, I've had a set of papers recently in the post, so I'm not sure what Alex is talking about. So that's a little bit strange, isn't it? It came in a brown envelope, and I was quite surprised that I had received a set of papers, but they came in the post. And I really don't see what your problem is with the post. I send things out to some very strange and weird and wonderful places every day by Royal Mail. And the things I send out have to get there the next day, and they do. And I can't really understand what the problem is that we're having here. Now, it could be that things are done too late in the day, and therefore nobody is taking them to the post office on time. That could be a problem. That's not the Royal Mail's problem, that's our problem. So we need to address the problem of getting these papers in the post in a timely manner so people receive them in the requisite time they need to actually read them, digest them, and do something proper with this thing. Okay.
Yeah, before you come back, Alex, I think generally the overwhelming feedback from, well, all the councillors I speak to is concern, one, that none of us agreed to this policy or protocol. It's not been brought to council or anything like that. And two, that we're failing in our job as councillors, and we just don't want to do that. I'm really worried about that. So I'd be really grateful if, and I do believe, you know, it is partly a problem because the reports are simply not being ready on time. And it means that we as councillors are not able to do our job. I'm going to let you respond and then we're going to move on. If you want to, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, just quickly to say, all councillors always get issued immediately at the point of publication, all of the papers for every meeting they're on the committee of. They come in your email inbox as attachments. They're also available online in full detail. You can get them through the ModGov app as well. So the option for giving you paper is so that if you want them in the meeting, you can leaf through them, I understand. That's why they're going in a pigeonhole. There wouldn't be an expectation you'd need to make a special journey here just to get your papers. If you have a reason why you can't read an online paper, please let us know, because we'd of course make reasonable adjustments. Please let us know, because then we can make reasonable adjustments. Great, thank you ever so much. I will take a look at the policy overall, and as I say, I'll write to all the councillors about our policy regarding post.
Thanks, Councillor Gann. Then we're
Just
going to move
on that, yeah, my ModGov doesn't work again. I've got to bring my tablet in and have it looked at again, and that's not the first time. So I can't do that always, Alex.
Okay, apart from some of the ones tonight. Right, let's move on. We're not going to solve this. I'm sensing everyone's anger actually on this one. Now, let's move on to Cranley Leisure Centre. If I sent a note to committee members earlier about how we'll deal with this. Do we have someone to present on this item? Officers and a portfolio holder? Would you all like to come up to the front? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I just step back? I did forget to talk about water monitoring under the committee work programme. Alex, would you mind just filling us in on that one, and then we'll move on to Cranley Leisure Centre.
Water monitoring is listed on your work programme for the 11th of March.
Councillor Barker-Lomax.
Thank you. Looking forward to discussing that. I'd like to add to the recommendation/description, so not just a review of the report, but a review of the procedures that led to the build-up of unaddressed high-risk water safety issues.
Okay, would you mind popping that on an email to Alex and I, and when
Yes.
we do our what's going on the next forward work programme, then it will make sure that we actually make sure that that's actioned.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Right, now I'm moving on to Cranley Leisure Centre. I think we have portfolio holder. Would you, we're going to try asking portfolio holders and relevant officers to maybe come up to the front, so it's more of a debate.
I think we're quite fine here. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, okay, right. It's a recommendation from Alex. Would anyone like to come forward or not, or are you all happy where you are?
Sorry, it was my suggestion that for the purpose of a discussion, it might be better if you weren't behind the committee members. So if you're comfortable coming here, we can have a discussion as a whole committee with the people.
I think moving will be disruptive. We've already, lots of time has gone past, and I think we just need to crack on at the moment. If that was made clear, then we wouldn't have brought so much detritus with us maybe around us. So, but we'll stay here for now. Thank you.
Okay, Alex, maybe we'll rerun this one at the next meeting and see how it goes. Oh, Candice, there we go. Candice is moving forward. Thank you. Cheers. Candice and Councillor, very happy for you to present this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This is just a minor amendment to the paper that came through executive previously, and it does, there's a small change to the financial position, which I will defer to Candice to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just a short intro. So following a recent internal review of our S106 agreements, an updated assessment has been completed to reflect the likelihood of certain contributions being received. This work was highlighted some financial risks that were not previously visible. So as a result, and to maintain transparency and ensure financial projections remain robust, the forecasted S106 funding for this project has been revised downwards, leading to a reduced overall funding of just below 1.5 million. So given the significance of this revision, the report is being reconsidered through the committee cycle, first by executive and then by full council on the 25th of February, so that decisions are informed by the most accurate and current information available. So it should be noted that this report was previously scrutinised by ONS on the 16th of December. The only amendment since being that review of the updated S106 funding position. So on this basis, the committee is asked to focus the scrutiny specifically on those areas impacted by that S106 funding change. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. As a committee, we are in the fortunate position of actually being able to review some of the scrutiny or action taken from the scrutiny comments as well. I'm not proposing we do go into those in much detail, but I am going to touch on those. But let's first of all kick off. I wouldn't say this is a minor change, 1.5 million. I would say that's pretty significant. It's definitely changed all the numbers and the amount of loan. Councillor Gale, you had your hand up. Do you want to kick off?
Yeah, interested. 1.4 and a tad million. Section 106 it's been removed. So can I ask, is that Dunsfold? Are we now saying that Dunsfold is not going ahead? Because I thought that was where that was coming from. I might be wrong, but it'd be quite nice to clarify that we actually don't envisage Dunsfold actually being built out. Thank you.
Yes, so predominantly that's made up of Dunsfold Park and the contribution attached to that. So this is not us saying that Dunsfold Park won't go ahead, but from the revision and the risk that we've looked at, the likelihood of its delivery within the time frame of this project is highly unlikely. So we would need that funding to be released by, in the next 2 to 3 years in order to fund this project. It's unlikely that that project would hit the milestone for releasing that funding within that time frame. So it's not us saying it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen within the required time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I got a bit nervous then because you said the lifetime of the project, that's 52 years. So I was like, I presume you don't mean 52 years. It has actually impacted the payback period though, hasn't it? Would you want to talk about that, if that's okay?
Of course, yes. So it has increased the payback period. So yes, because this S106 funding has been reduced, we've had to fill that gap essentially with additional borrowing, and that pushes up that payback period from 50 years up to 52 years if you exclude the subsidy element. So it does have an impact because borrowing is more expensive, obviously, than getting some money from external funding sources. Yeah.
I'll take Councillor Goodridge and then Councillor Gale.
Yes, I mean, talking about the payback period, my understanding or my memory is that we were told that the Passy House building would have a 50-year lifespan. And at the time we were down to 47, I think it was originally, years to pay back. That then rose to 50, it's now risen to 52. Which on the original life of the leisure centre was going to be 2 years sort of on the wrong side, and I now see that it's being suggested this building will have a lifespan of 55 years conveniently. Could that be explained to me, please?
Not the specifics of the in terms of the passive house, that's over my head, but in terms of that change, so the 55 years, it was changed to 55 years in the most recent report on the 16th of December, which is before this change, which has pushed it over the 50-year mark. So the two are not correlated. What we did do when we were coming back for budget is we've obviously then talked to more external advisors. More's been known in terms of those passive house buildings, and on the basis of that advice, we've upped that payback, the life cycle of that asset to 55 years based on that external advice. And the timing of it is just purely that when we were coming back, we've delved into it a bit more. I can't go into detail on passive house, but Tamsin could probably give some more detail in terms of the life cycle element.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this was one of our questions actually to scrutiny, and we would basically referred back, I believe, to a 2023 report and not given any detail of the evidence that you are talking about, which we've requested, as to why the lifespan has increased to 55 years. I mean, just noting that point, Councillor Gale, you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, now we've got this additional borrowing. Can somebody give me the figure that we're actually borrowing now? Is that allowed to be spoken about tonight or whatever?
Candice, would you be, I don't know if that's exempt or not.
It is in exempt papers. I don't think that we've got that number within the report.
So the section 106 is reduced by 1.435 million.
Yeah.
It's increased the loan requirement. I think you confirmed to me earlier that the increased loan requirement was not exempt.
No, it's not.
No.
And so whilst it's contained within the exempt appendix, that loan requirement, I have no issue with that figure being released. It's just not in the public domain at the moment.
Okay,
So the figure is within Appendix 2. There's no reason that that figure as a standalone cannot be released. And so perhaps we could include it in the report if you think it's a valuable figure to have.
I think it is important
Yeah.
to note that personally. Are we all in agreement that that should be included?
Yes, I think if we're borrowing, I think people should know.
How much we're borrowing, exactly. And does anyone have any more points that they want to raise on this change? Of course, we based all of our previous scrutiny recommendations on the previous information that we had on best value, etc. Now, I will be responding in, Councillor Davidson.
Thank you. I may well be digging out stuff from the papers which I had not read because I had never received them. But there are 4 options being proposed. I'm not clear. Perhaps you could just summarize what are the financial implications of each of those options. I guess option 1 is the preferred one, which gets the loan which is being requested. What would be this, going on? What would be the saving if the passive house design certification standard is not met, is removed, or redesigning the centre? What can be reduced? What can be saved, rather than go through the full 1.4 million?
Thank you. Yes, apologies. I just need to check what's with it. I'm just checking with it's in the public document. I don't want to myself say anything that's an exempt, so just bear with me. Don't mind. Okay. So yeah, the report doesn't currently contain those individual figures in terms of the overall totals in cost. And I think perhaps if there is details on the financials, it's contained within an exempt appendix. So just on that basis, I mean, I can review after the meeting certainly and come back to you, but I want to err on the side of caution and not go into that.
If I may, Chair, I think if we do take, this does go, I presume, to full council, those numbers, I think, aren't necessary, so people can make an appropriate decision as to which option to actually take.
Yeah, and if I will just sort of refer back to what we actually asked for in our last scrutiny recommendations. Number 1, further information on the low carbon option and the options analysis, as in what we intended was we wanted proper financial detail. What we got back was the options referred back to an appendix we'd already seen and referred back to a report in 2023 we'd already seen. So we have been provided with no substantive financial detail that we wanted to be provided with. Number 2, justification of the benefit and cost of passive house compared with a more conventional low carbon leisure centre. We've been referred back to the 2023 report and a couple of bullet points in item 12.4. In other areas, we've been asked for further evidence, for example, to justify the extension to the scheme's life. We haven't really, we've been provided with 2 sentences. And I think I'm going to put all this in writing back to the portfolio holder and back to the executive, because this is going to executive tomorrow night. I personally do not believe that 2 pages of this as exempt and appendices, given all the things that we asked for at the last committee meeting, is sufficient. Does anyone want to just comment on that before we move on? and or any recommendations? Councillor Gale.
I think we did ask for a lot of information and we thought we were going to get it. And I really don't think we've been given the information we were asking for. The comparisons for one thing. When costs keep going up, I mean, even if you're doing something in your own home, if costs keep going up, maybe you can't go for gold standard anymore. And, you know, this is what I think we are failing on here. You know, are we looking for a gold standard when we could actually go silver? I don't want to take this thing away from anybody because I think it's a very, very necessary thing that we do something about that hideous sports centre that's in Cranley and make it better for people. However, we have really got to look at the pennies now and we're not getting those answers.
Thanks. I'll Councillor Bartolomeus and then portfolio holder can return. Thank you.
Thank you. So I note that we've got about 874,000 of increases relating to passive house alone. This is on page 12. So 464 passive house, 268 passive house, 152 passive house. And just a bit of online research shows that if you go for passive house, that's a 20% increase in capital costs over non-environmentally improved buildings. Should we not be going for something a bit more modest that's still environmentally friendly, that only costs 5 to 10% over other buildings? So it seems to me we're gold plating for ideological reasons at huge cost to the taxpayer. And after what went on at the edge, it really sticks in the craw. But in any event, I think it doesn't represent good value for the taxpayer.
Thank you, Councillor Bartolomeus. I mean, certainly that was the reason for all the recommendations which have not been addressed from the last meeting. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Chair. And I would draw members' attention to Appendix 1. It is an exempt appendix at the moment, and that shows fully the different options, what the different amounts, returns, what the cost of changing to removing passive house, what the full redesign of a centre would be, what a do nothing option. So all of the details are there for you to consider. And also on page 20, I think that of your report, there was the recommendations that you made previously and the additional information was provided. And also a supplementary paper was provided on the about the further evidence to justify the extension of the scheme's life to 55 years. And I would stress to members, please don't get the scheme's life confused with the payback period. The scheme's life is a separate thing, and that was included, as it said previously, in the December report. With the recommendations that were said by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee previously, as outlined on page 20 of the report, that provides the full details. We didn't attach the reports as well. Your agenda, as you said, was quite heavy as well. So it just refers to the different reports. All of this has been covered previously. The only item that has changed is the alignment of the pay of the Section 106 funds. So we're not saying that they won't come forward, but the alignment of this project timeline and the Section 106 funding does not currently align. So that is the only, and it is quite a minor change. The amounts might be quite high, but the actual change is not that these won't go ahead, but that the alignment to do with this project that doesn't currently align. And I think that was really a positive thing to bring back to ONS so that you could see the reworked financials before it again goes to executive. But the budget hasn't increased from the last time that you looked at it. The budget is the same. It is just the actual funding alignment which hasn't come together. So all the details that you requested is available in this report. All the options are available in your Appendix 1 for you to compare. And so you will see about the implications of the removal of the passive house design within your report. Thank you.
Yeah, just to confirm, thank you, Councillor Townsend. We've looked at those in detail twice now, and what we are saying is that there is not enough information in this in order for us to make a decision. That is overwhelming the feedback that I've received from councillors to date. What we are saying is, where are the cash flows? Where is the detailed financial analysis? Where is the real detailed analysis looking at a non-passive house scheme? That's what was talked about last time where you were there, and that has not been provided. I recognise that that is not the main reason why we're coming back to this report. I've said I will respond in writing, and so I will do. I've circulated a draft to committee members. If they have any comments, I'll make sure that gets sent, because this is going to executive tomorrow night. Do we want to put forward any recommendation or comments on the item tonight in front of us? Any additional scrutiny comments? Councillor Goodridge.
No, not an additional scrutiny comment, but just because I wasn't on the committee last time round, when you look at page 12, the general construction inflation, 24 million has been taken as the starting point for that, which I wasn't quite sure where that came from, particularly when you add in all the passive house cost increases. And I just wonder whether we're getting duplication here. We're getting 24 million, 5% inflation over 5 quarters. And then you're getting all the passive house stuff going up as well, some for reasons that they need more stone or the specifications have changed, but we seem to be having inflation, and then on top of the inflation, we're adding in all the passive house bits, which does seem to me a sort of duplication of increased costs, and I wonder why that should be.
Yeah, just by way of explanation, I'll hand over to Candice, if I may, in a minute. But just to say that when at the last meeting it was presented to us and it was acknowledged that some of the costs that were being uncovered along the way were specifically related to the passive house element, and they were uncovering those as they went along, if you recall. Candice, would you mind responding on that? Thank you.
I can certainly start. So yes, the general construction inflation just relates to purely general inflation. So there's a benchmark of 5% put in there as a general amount. You've then got the other elements, which are specialist elements that are outside of that general inflationary uplift. So there's not a duplication here. It's just that some of those specialist elements are more expensive than even the 5% adjustment. Tamsin, it's probably better than me to describe specifically on these items, if you're okay to pick up.
Tamsin, would you like to? Or
I think the detail is in the report about the uplifts, which we talked through in some detail last time, and the position hasn't changed. But what I would like to make the point of is that this scheme is developing the whole time. So obviously we're in a much more detailed position now with the scheme and the project and knowing what's involved with the build. So we're able to get a much more finite detail about that costing and make sure it's up to date and it's relevant. As the scheme develops, that will always change. So we're at this point we've got a much more fully designed, fully costed scheme than we had 2 years ago.
yeah, and £5 million increase, of course. Thank you for that explanatory note. I suppose as a committee last time round, and I think we're reiterating that concern today, is concerned that doesn't go up further. Really, I'm seeing nodding from the committee. I'm just really conscious that Councillor Merriweather had his hand up before, so I just wanted to give him the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Chair. That's very kind. I just wanted to draw members' attention to paragraph 1.5 and paragraph 12.1.4 of your report. We have discussed this additional borrowing to if you like, mitigate the loss of the section 106. But 1.5, for example, does say that officers will continue to actively explore further additional SIL funding and other external funding sources. And if successful, this would replace that additional borrowing. Thank you.
Thank you. So just noting that we'll be coming back with feedback on the scrutiny recommendations. Do we want to just note for now the section 106 position? Or does anyone have any other comment that they want to add as a recommendation? Councillor Goodrich?
Well, it's noting the 106, but it seems to me that most of it was Dunsfold, and if so, that information would have been quite clear to everybody a year or 2 years ago, that the likelihood, well, it came off the 5-year plan 2 years ago, and therefore it would have been known 2 years ago that we weren't going to get any 106 from Dunsfold. And it just seems that it was a bit unfortunate that this wasn't drawn to our attention at the time, 2 years ago, because this matter has risen. I know Passive House made a big increase from, I think the original figure we were talking about was 20 million, and here we are now at 36 million. And one just hopes it is not going to then sort of creep into getting up to 40 million. But I'm assuming that as we are very close now to, on the basis that it goes through council on the 25th of February, that the contract can be signed more or less immediately and we can get on with it. So there's less leeway for either delay or suddenly someone noticing something else that's missing. And that therefore, when we agree the figure, the total figure as set out in our papers, that there's not going to be another comeback.
Thank you, Councillor Goodrich. I'm hunting around for the response to number 9, that assurances that the payback period will not be extended further. I'm just looking for it. In fact, you might have it. Just one moment. That's it. No. Sorry. Does anyone have? I've got, this is a problem, it's all arrived in so many different bits and bobs of paper that we're all scrabbling around looking for. Yeah. Yeah. Number 9, the payback period is an accurate representation of the the current fully costed detailed plan. The project team will continue to review the design to ensure the final fixed cost is within the projected project budget, and therefore there will be no increase in the payback period. Oh, that, so, this is, that's not a definite no, but it's a maybe no. So let's, I think something along the lines of the committee is concerned, the committee notes the section 106 position and the committee is concerned that it's only just come to light.
Do you have any recommendations for the executive?
What recommendations could we put forward? You know, it's when the 5-year housing supply, this Dunsfold was taken out over what, a year ago, so it's very unfortunate.
Doesn't have to be a recommendation.
No, we're just.
If you'd like to formulate one, otherwise you're noting.
We'll have to note it.
I think.
Yeah, and we'll be coming back on the recommendations separately in writing. Yeah, thank you. Okay, should we move on? Thank you. Are you happy with that? Thank you. Right, 69 High Street. We have a team here. Would anyone like to come up to the front or not? Thank you, Candice, by the way. Janet, thank you for coming up to the hot seat at the front. That's much appreciated. And thank you, team. Would you like to present this item?
Thank you very much, Chair. So the new affordable housing delivery at 69 High Street. Officers have now completed the work looking at the different options for the land to the rear of 69 High Street. And the proposal being brought forward is to proceed with the delivery of 13 new affordable homes on the site. All of these would be let at Waverley rent levels, which is 70% of the open market value. I'll leave it at that for the time being so that the team can fill in with the detail.
Thank you, Chair. So, as Councillor Crowe has just said, this report updates members on the proposals to deliver a new affordable housing scheme on council-owned land to the rear of 69 the High Street, Godalming. As members are aware, the site forms a part of a wider mixed-use regeneration project, with the commercial element at the front of the site progressing separately and the residential element now coming forward to its delivery phase. The proposal is to deliver 13 new affordable rented homes comprising of studio 1, 2 and 3 bed flats with private and shared amenity, and designed to meet the council's adopted space quality and sustainability standards, including the delivery of biodiversity net gain. The homes would be highly energy efficient and located in a sustainable town centre location with good access to services and public transport. The report sets out the work undertaken to optimise the scheme and the reasons why the flatted option for 13 homes is recommended. It also outlines the alternative options considered, which include do nothing, delivering a reduced number of homes, or securing planning permission and disposing of the land. And it explains why these options are either financially unviable or do not meet the council's strategic objectives. The exempt business case and viability report underpin the recommendation to allocate 7.53 million from the housing revenue account, subject to full council approval. The proposed financing of the scheme is set out in exempt appendix 1 of the report, and the impact of the HRA on the HRA business plan, MPV, IRR and payback periods have all been considered in the viability assessment, and Haverley Consulting have completed an independent review of the appraisal and valuation report, which can be found at exempt annex 1 and 2 of the business case. We do continue our engagement with Homes England and have a meeting in the diary to discuss this scheme and a number of others in our development programme in the next 2 weeks. The exempt appendix 2 also provides an indication of the impact of the allocation of grant funding if secured, and shows an improved viability, reducing the payback period from 47 years to 44. And if unsuccessful with our bid for funding, then the housing revenue account reserves will be used. So members are asked to consider the options set out in this report, including the recommendation to proceed with the 13-unit flatted scheme, which best meets the council's strategic priorities by delivering new affordable homes, helping revitalise the high street by bringing more people to live locally and support local businesses. And we would welcome your feedback to the executive ahead of its decision and subject consideration at full council. Thank you.
Thank you. So just before we kick off, just noting this is also coming to the executive tomorrow night. Noting, unfortunately, the report that came to us did not actually contain, sorry, Councillor Merriweather?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure. There is a factual error in the Haverley Consulting report, page 6 of the report, and but it is in the pink sheets, but it is significant. So I would just like to correct it. It's probably, I'm just looking around. There's probably no harm if I correct that percentage in open session, is it?
It's not in any context, then you could probably just name the figure.
Name the figure. Okay, so on page 6, under NPV discount rate, they quote 3.5% and 3%.
Yeah.
And the number actually used is 5.96%. Thank you.
Sorry, would you mind repeating that just so I can get this straight?
Yeah, on third paragraph, page 6,
Yeah,
it talks about discount rates. And in the first line, it says 3.5%, and in the second line, it says 3%.
yeah.
The actual rates used in the modelling was 5.96%. Candice can walk you through how that is worked out. But that's, I think I've probably said as much as I can in the exam.
Okay, thank you. Candice, do you want to walk us through that? I don't, relevance of that?
Yeah, sure. So 3.5% is probably what you'd be used to seeing in most of our appraisals in terms of a discount rate, and it is what is recommended within the Green Book. However, it depends on how you calculate an MPV. So all the difference is with this is that in the MPV, we've used the inflationary rate. So we've assumed inflation on build costs as well as any income coming in. And so when you do that, you essentially have to discount the discount rate. So you take that inflation figure and you have to uprate that 3.5%. So that's essentially what it is. It's ensuring that we're inflating the discount rate. If you just applied the discount rate, not including the inflation, you would have an incorrect outcome in your MPV. So it's not the most straightforward thing, but that's what that is.
Perfectly clear. Thank you. So if I am able to, sorry, my screen's just gone dead. I just wanted to flag that the actual report that came to ONS didn't contain the 7.53 million that's being asked for in the actual recommendation or the projected 47-year payback period. And it doesn't contain actually in open the delivery timescales. Is there any reason why that would not be, would be exempt? I can't see why that would be exempt. Could you talk about the delivery timescales before we enter debate?
Yes, so the report does highlight elements of the delivery programme subject to member approval of the business case and then submission of the planning application. What it doesn't do is give a full indication of the programme, which we can happily do. So in terms of our latest forecast proposals, we would look to submit an application in June. And then whilst that was going through the planning application consideration process, we would then start our procurement and tender process. So developing the tender pack, that would take between June and December. So when we had an outcome of the planning application decision, we would then be able to proceed to market. There would be a period of detailed design and through a pre-contract services agreement, which would take us through to June 27, and then a start on site following that. And this is the latest programme that we're working from.
Thanks. And when would you end then?
Well, we don't have a build programme, but we would imagine it would take a year to 18 months. And then there would be a defects period following that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I think what we're being asked by here really is to review how we feel the options in the report in front of us are in relation to delivering best value for the HRA. We do have a clear statutory duty to deliver best value for the HRA. And so if we could try and direct our comments firstly in that and on our view generally of the scheme, I think that would be useful. Councillor Goodridge.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It's difficult when all the figures are in exempt, so I'm going to talk generally. But I would say, looking at all the figures, that it's time to stop digging and to perhaps cut one's losses. one knows the figure that has been allocated for its purchase of the land that relates to the housing. We've been told what the land is worth now. And if we sold it, we would make a loss, but not an enormous loss. What we're now being told is that if we spend the 7 million and develop the 13 flats, the difference between the value per unit and the average cost per unit is a big difference. And that what we would in effect be doing is spending a lot of money and having an asset worth less money, and quite a lot less money. And therefore, it seems the right option to me for value for money on the HRA fund is that we sell the land and take the brave course for the administration to actually admit that they've perhaps made a mistake when it came to delivering affordable housing cheaply, not cheaply, but even providing it at large cost, sell the land and then spend less than 7 million, maybe several million less, and buy 13 flats on the open market for the council instead. In that way, it'll cost us several million less for the same result. And therefore, I think if you were looking at this as like a hard businessman, you'd think you'd be nuts to do what you're doing, and that there is a more sensible, cost-effective option which would not involve us in developing this ourselves. I think the one thing that we've learned over the past is doing our own developments can be a risky and expensive hobby to do, and I wouldn't want us to carry on doing it. So I think it's options, one of the other options, but not the one that we're planning now.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it is worth flagging that as Councillor Goodridge says, the Brett Gardner valuation currently for the residential element is significantly less than what the valuation at purchase was, which would indicate that the site was overpaid for. I think also it's worth looking at, I've been looking at what does the wording of this report say? Well, option 4 is provided as an option, sale following planning consent. So one option is sell now. We have the value for that. One option is option 4, sale following planning consent, but I see no, correct me if I'm wrong, I see no valuation on that basis, so I can't really assess whether that's a real good option or not. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm, the valuation is based on that planning consent being in place. It's one of the assumptions in the document, just to clarify.
So, sorry, a sale now would be that initial number provided in the Brett Gardner report. So
the valuation is based on the assumption that there's planning consent in place. Yep.
I'm not sure that's good or bad, actually. The open market purchase. So I have the blessed joy of being surrounded by property specialists, and we've done some valuation over the last week on comparable evidence, and I note similar comparable evidence in the valuation report. And it would indicate to me that actually if you were to buy these flats of a similar specification in a similar location on the open market, you could probably buy 24 to 26 flats. Now, I think when we're talking about best value duty, I want to put this to the committee. What is your view of best value? Are we delivering on our statutory duty to the council in one of the major, I believe that value is not thing that we must take into account, but it surely must be one of the very important ones, because the opportunity cost of doing this is that we are not able to, for example, buy a lot more flats for our HRA account. Does anyone have any comment on that? Councillor Follows, or?
Can I just ask, are you intending to present this evidence to the committee and to the executive to review, instead of just asking a
It's
question of-
actually, it's really evidenced really well in your own valuation report, which back up the exact numbers. Okay. Does anyone have any comment on that, Councillor Barker-Lomax?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me if we're going to, oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, I think if we're looking at our best value duty, then we have to adopt the route that Councillor Goodrich recommended. It seems to me there's no question.
Point of order, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Follows.
Can I just confirm that you said that you shared exempt material with outside people?
Incorrect. I'm saying that I've seen. No, I'm saying that I have received. I'm the chair. Thank you. I'm saying that I've received information based on 13 flats in that location, and I've asked for the evidence of what that rental would be, and that is, and I've assessed it against what is in the exempt information, and the exempt information backs up the information that I've received. That's how property. I don't think that is how the property market works via comparables.
I would request that information, Madam Chair.
Chair,
Yeah, I'd be really happy if we could do that. I would just say I'm very happy if we can bring in any specialists, but I'm just conscious this is going to executive tomorrow night. Can we go back to the report? The report itself, the valuation for 13 flats, shows a significant disparity, as you've said, between the end valuation once the work has been done, in the order of significant numbers of millions, less. What will end up is millions less than the cost, the 7.5 million cost of doing the work. Now, I can understand non-financial best value duties in terms of delivering affordable housing, but should that be at any cost is my question. Councillor.
Am I allowed to come back on that? I'm not a property specialist, so I'm not even going to go there because it's so out of my domain. But what I would really like to just say is that these flats, I think, are going to be absolutely fantastic for the reasons that Louisa has already described. There's no doubt in my mind at all that we desperately need them. And I think best value has to be seen. You have mentioned this. I mean, it's not just a question of the figures. I know that. But I think it's very important that we see best value in the round. And this will contribute, I think, hugely to the regeneration of our very, very, very important high street. And I think that is part of the check and balance that we have to sort of put into the pot. That's all I wanted to say, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davidson.
Going back to costs as well, but first of all, sorry, Zoe. I would say that I fully support the fact that we need to have more affordable or council-owned dwellings, particularly in the centre of our town. So I got no problem with the fact that we are doing that. What I do not feel comfortable about, and again, it may be hidden away in the numbers, which I have not had the opportunity to go through in detail, is that I wonder whether when the details behind option 2, which is recommended, are such that there's an option 2A or an option 2B or an option 2C, which produces the same dwellings, maybe not at a platinum or even a gold level standard, but is one which meets our overall strategic criteria. And I do think that we may be at times pushing towards gilding the lily with some of these developments. And I would ask if it's at all possible, without having to go and pay huge amounts of consultancy fees, to look at a way of reducing the cost and probably lower the risk associated with delivering these affordable houses, which I may disagree with my colleagues around the chamber, I thoroughly endorse.
I think maybe we can formulate some kind of recommendation on that basis, in that what you're looking for is,
Depends whether my colleagues.
well, should we try and think of how we would word it and then put it to a vote maybe on that element? Because what you're saying is you would like the building specification to be potentially revisited in terms of cost.
Without spending too much money, Chair.
Yeah, okay. I've written that down and we'll try and formulate something at the end. Councillor Merriweather, you were going to comment?
Thank you. Hopefully to help clear up some things, you're quite right. Best value is not just a financial metric. The value side does have social value, and the NPVs that we've been quoting do not reflect any social value, despite the Treasury guidance that if it's at all possible, they should. And I would hazard a guess that if they did, if the NPVs were allowed to include some social values, they will be positive. The PVs also reflect, unrealized gains and losses. And of course, we're not here to make money, whether it's realized or unrealized. We are here to facilitate the development of these homes for their residents. So I'm a little bit cautious to use the word us, because we're not doing this for us. We're doing this for our residents and for our tenants who are going to pay for these homes over their lives, before their lives are over. To come back to Councillor Goodridge, this isn't an either or scenario. We buy homes all the time, particularly under Section 106 agreements, and we get commuted sums to do that as well under Section 106 agreements. The idea that doing this is an opportunity cost and prevents us from doing something else, I'm afraid is not correct. So we're not a property developer. We are impacted by the market just as much as everyone else. And because the residual land value today is lower than it was when we bought the land, is actually more attributable to the stagnation in gross development values and the inflation in costs than it is a reflection on what was or wasn't the conditions at the time we bought the place. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to go back on best value, and then I'd like Ezra to speak. We have a duty as councillors to consider and challenge alternative options. Statutory guidance is explicit. Councillors must actively consider all reasonable alternatives and be able to show the chosen option represents best value. So that means a clear business case. It means if it's economical, if it's efficient or effective. So does it meet these tests? If the scheme is poor value, should we support it? Because we're not under a duty to make money, but we're also not under a duty to allow the HRO to lose lots and lots of money either in progressing a scheme. Especially, we must take into account the opportunity cost of progressing one course of action means that we're not using that money doing something else. Ezra, would you like to come back?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to address the really important point raised about value engineering, just to reassure the committee that we're fortunate to have Louise and team who scrutinise all the costs in full detail and with extreme care, and that the options put forward before you have gone through a thorough value engineering process. We've looked at all the costs, and we're absolutely not spending any money unnecessarily. but also it's a key objective in our corporate strategy to deliver homes that people are proud of and that also have not just efficient build costs, but also efficient running costs as well. And we're really proud as a team that we deliver really high quality housing that everyone can be proud to call their home. What's absolutely crucial is we get that balance right. So we can happily provide more detail outside the committee about some of the work we do around value engineering, but just to reassure the committee that's a detailed and extensive part of the process that we go through to make sure that we get best value on the costs.
Thank you, Ezra. I'm told that the webcast is down. Yeah, should we wait? Because I know Councillor Hyman had contacted me on this because he felt very strongly he wanted to speak on this item. Councillor Barker-Lomack.
I was wondering if we could make a recommendation as a committee that we get an option 5, which is we sell the land and we buy 20 flats. So we may be answering no Bayesian solution. Let's find another way so that we can show better value for the taxpayers and more houses for our residents.
Yes, exactly. So, well, look, I'm not going to, does anyone else have any other points that they want to make of Councillor Goodridge? And then we're going to just try and form some recommendations as a group, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, Councillor, and Jerry's here. We'll talk to Jeremy in a minute. Jerry in a minute.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, Councillor Merriweather was saying that, buying is something we can always do. Yes, we can. And just to make it quite clear, what I feel is that it is wrong for good value to buy 13 units in effect, or build 13 units at a cost of 7.5 million, when for that money we could either get more units or we could pay several million less and get 13 units from another source. And it just seems to me that in just bald terms, it doesn't make economic sense or good value to spend 7.5 million on 13 units, which will then be worth considerably less than we paid for them. It just makes absolute nonsense. And taking into account all the other less financial issues, taking all those into account, it's if it was just a few 100,000, I couldn't care less. But bearing in mind the figures we're dealing with, I do care.
I must say, I would endorse your views. Raised with property professionals, the 7.5 million and the 13 flats, and it was laughed at openly, the cost. It is significantly higher than market. Councillor Townsend, are you the portfolio holder?
No, I'm not, but I can put my hand up.
Okay, well, I will.
Jerry needs to provide some information that will help you, because obviously having 13 units or however many units you're talking about, you have to realise that if those units are not close together, then you have maintenance costs and extra maintenance costs that may be on top of that. So if you're talking about buying them all in a block, there may be an additional cost concerned with that. But also with the maintenance costs that attracts as well, you are also needing to look at each of those units that you're purchasing. What is the ground rent? What is the maintenance charges? Where are you purchasing from? Where are they going to be situated? Are you going to get them in the areas of highest need? So I think, it's not just a comparison that you can say, this costs this costs that. That's far too simplistic. It's a complicated process. And in order to do that, you'd have to do a lot more than comparison. No wonder your people laughed. I might laugh too, because it's not a direct comparison, Chair.
No, that's exactly right, why we would benefit from more detail and further analysis of it. You're quite right, Councillor Townsend. I would really welcome a market specialist coming in and telling us all exactly what they think about this project. Councillor Hyman, I believe, is online.
Yes, I don't know about the webcast, but Zoom still seems to be working. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak, Chairman. I did contact you earlier because I hadn't registered by 12 o'clock, but you have kindly given me permission. I don't actually think it's quite as complicated, and I'm sure you don't. I think it's quite as complicated as some people might want us to think this is. One issue that hasn't been, well, a couple of issues. In the first place, this was meant to be all about the rejuvenation of the high street. That was to do with the government rules on borrowing, and when they realised that councils were going mad and losing a lot of money on commercial investments. And the justification for doing this at the time was the rejuvenation of the high street. The housing was to some extent a secondary issue. And at the time that it was purchased, some of us, yourself and I, and a number of other members, did point out that it didn't look good value, and our valuations have proven correct from what's been put into the pink papers. And that's where I'd like to concentrate, if I may, just for a minute, Chairman, because I think, quite honestly, the justification under Section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972 for keeping the information regarding the price paid for this for this land and the amount that's being charged to the housing revenue account, which tenants are paying for, and as Councillor Merriweather says, the tenants are paying for this for the rest of their lives if this goes through as it is. It is quite clear, as I think you intimated when you first started speaking, that tenants are subsidising the general fund's mistake in overpaying for the property in the first place. And we really have to be very careful on this decision that we're making. Is it the right thing to do to be putting up tenants' rents at above inflation rates in the budget when we know full well that if we decide not to make this mistake of overpaying for it, but if allowing the HRA to overpay or forcing the HRA to overpay for it, then tenants wouldn't have to be paying more money on top of their rents, and obviously the rent rise that's being suggested to pay for this is completely contrary to the policy which was just announced at Christmas of making the properties as affordable as possible. And the issue here is whether this should be exempt or not. And as far as I'm concerned, the overriding issue under section 100A is the public interest test. We've been told that in the chamber a number of times. It is a public interest. Is it in the public interest to disclose this information or not? And I cannot see any reason why it should not be. It is by far, it must be. You know, if tenants aren't allowed to know what their rent rise is going to be paying for, I think that's absolutely disgraceful. This deal has been done. It's history. It's we know what it is.
Councillor Hyman,
Why aren't the public allowed to know? And could you question that, Chairman, please? Because I really do think that this should be in open, and there are other elements that should be in open. I know you share my concerns there. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
No problem. Interesting. I just wondered if you had any comment on the valuation going forwards. Interestingly, but no, I'll leave you to it. Thank you. Well, does anyone want to respond on Councillor Hyman's point?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So firstly, in terms of the land value for purchase, I'll have to check, Councillor Hyman. I believe in a prior report that was in the public domain. So there's absolutely no reason that can't be released, and we can pick that up in terms of inclusion in the future report.
I think you're right.
I
think the amount apportioned to the HRA is public.
It is public. It is public.
Should we just say what it is then? I don't know.
Yeah, let me double check. I don't want to say it, but I'm 99% sure that is out there. And so afterwards we'll clarify, but I'm pretty sure that if we were to look back on the commercial report, it would be included in there as a public item. I just want to say in terms of, rent payers paying for this project and perhaps subsidising this project, I can't go into too much detail because it's an exempt, but I want to be really clear in terms of there's obviously the capital element in terms of what we pay and what we could sell these for, and perhaps any loss that maybe arise from that if we were to sell. And then there's the ongoing net income that this project is making. And to be really clear, bottom line, this project puts money into the HRA in terms of revenue. It doesn't take away from it. So it is contributing, it's paying for itself, and then it starts to generate money into the business plan based on those numbers included in the viability appendix. Now, that is entirely separate to this capital point that we're talking about in terms of the valuation of the land and if we were to sell the land, but I just want to make that point really clear. Thank you, Chair.
No, okay, that's a good point. Thank you, Candice. I think, Councillor Gale, and then I think we should need to start pulling forward some recommendations, if that's okay.
Just a question on what Candice was saying, actually. So we have a certain amount of money coming from the HRA to actually do this. And then the people are going to pay their rents, which goes back into the HRA. How many years does it take to repay on the figures we've got?
For 47 years for the entire amount put in, so that includes borrowing as well as HRA reserves. So I think it's 47 years payback. Just on the individual element of the reserves, I couldn't say, but for the whole project, it's 47 years.
Yeah, so total investment in the whole site will come to nearly £13 million from the HRA and from general fund and financing grants, but 13 million nearly in total for this whole project. Now, I have drafted some bits and bobs as we've been going through. If I copy and paste that to you, Alex, and then we can play with it. Would that?
I've got it here. So all we need to do is assure ourselves that any recommendations you make have come out of the discussion this afternoon.
Yeah, let's do that. So number 1, I wrote, and please amend and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it'd be good to have a starting point. Cost and payback period. The committee recommends the executive include in public, i.e. non-exempt report, the full cost of the residential scheme. It's not in the current report, that's why. The projected 47-year payback period, the delivery timescales, and the proposed 10-year split for the 13 flats. These items are essential for assessing best value and ensuring transparency and proper public scrutiny. Are we agreed?
Okay, I definitely didn't get that. Is that one of these?
It's number 1. No, I've got a different one. Let me just forward. I sent it to you at 4:18.
Sorry, did you send me 2 different lots today?
Possibly. So sorry. Bear with us. Which will we send it?
No, I think I've got it here. I think I've even. So this is what you want.
Yeah, 1 cost and payback period. The committee recommends. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, this one.
Okay. Number 2, valuation evidence. The committee notes that the Brett Gardner valuation for the residential element is approximately half the assumed land cost. It should say in the HRA or a portion to the HRA. No, half the land cost, a portion to the HRA. Okay, he can in a minute. The committee, I've written here, but please disagree with me if you don't agree. The committee recommends that the executive provide clear justification for this discrepancy, including whether Waverley Borough Council significantly overpaid for the site. I think that addresses Councillor Hyman's point as well. Are we agreed? Is anyone, I don't know if you are, Jerome, should we take a vote on whether we're okay? Yeah. The committee notes that the Brett Gardner valuation for the residential element is approximately half the assumed land cost in the HRA. The committee recommends that the executive provide clear justification for this discrepancy, including whether Waverley Borough Council significantly overpaid for the site. Should we take a vote? Because I think, just want to be clear. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 2 abstain. Any against? And And one abstention, 2 abstentions. Thank you. So that carries. Councillor Merriweather, you're desperate to speak. We're just crack on. Go on.
I'm desperate to help. The costs, the scheme costs, were disclosed in our council papers in open on the 22nd of October 2025, and the general fund approved budget is 3.7 million, and if you add that to the 7.5 million that we're talking about now, everybody can add up 7.5 and 3.75. I don't think it quite gets to 13 or whatever number you said, but
well,
anyway, well, but they both of those numbers are in the public domain.
Thanks. So just to confirm, the numbers I was adding together were the 5.4 million to date, spent or apportioned to the commercial element of the scheme, plus this 7.5.
Yeah,
The 5.4 included the purchase price.
Chair. I think that's where you're going wrong. The 5.4 million you're picking up from the October report includes the land cost and the pre-development
For
spend
both.
for the
So
HRA.
it's minus the 1.4 million. So
If you take the 5.4, take off 1.6 for the
1.6.
HRA, you get to 3.765 for the general fund. And then you add the 7.5, which we were talking about tonight for the
So that
HRA.
takes us to 11 point
Yeah, you're the mathematician.
something. I'm not sure I am tonight. 11.2. Thank you. Councillor Lawton is the mathematician tonight. Thank you. So, thank you. That was helpful, Councillor Merriweather. I appreciate that. Number 3, option 4, sale following planning consent. Now, actually, you have clarified this point. I've had written, the committee recommends the executive provide evaluation of the realisable sale price should planning consent for the units be secured, as this option cannot be assessed meaningfully without this information. So we do have that information. So can we remove that point? Thank you.
But you haven't moved or recommended it. So
I haven't, so I'll just remove it from my own bullet points. Thank you. Option 2, open market purchase alternative. The financial analysis demonstrates that the completed scheme would be worth millions less than its delivery cost. The committee therefore recommends that the executive fully investigate the alternative option of selling the site in its current state and purchasing an equivalent number of comparable units in the open market. Now, I think that reiterates concerns made by Councillor Goodridge and Councillor Barcolomics and me too. Do we, that as a recommendation, are we in agreement? You want to?
I think we should just take on board Councillor Townsend's comment, is that the value of market-driven properties going to vary according to maintenance, where they're all together or in disparate places. So I think we need to take note of that.
I don't think I think it'd be marginal. The executive fully investigates the alternative option of selling. Well, it would be covered in that. The executive fully investigate the alternative option of selling the site in its current state and purchasing an equivalent number of comparable units on the open market. Should we do a comma considering all costs?
Yeah.
Comma considering all costs. Are we all in agreement?
Agreed.
That's everybody's voted, so that's carried. Oh wait,
Hold on.
sorry. No, so let's take a vote. Are we all in favour? All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and against? One against. Thank you. I think that's against. So that carries. Best value was the next bullet point I had put forward for recommendation. The committee notes the project's net present value is negative by well, I had written the several, I don't know if I want to be a bit more general than that, by a significant amount. Given that the housing revenue could secure more homes for the same investment elsewhere, the committee considers that the statutory requirement on the council to deliver best value has not currently been met.
Is that a recommendation for the executive to do something?
That's a good point. The committee, can we change it to the committee recommends consideration?
Committee recommends
Sorry,
consideration.
below here we can say the committee recommends instead consideration that the statutory requirement on the council to deliver best value has not been met.
What are you asking them to do?
I'm asking them to consider whether they have in fact met the
Recommends that the executive considers
whether the statutory, the best value tests have in fact been met. We're going to have to read this one out again, I'm afraid.
has been met. Okay, so the committee notes.
Alex, do you mind reading that out when you're happy with it?
Yep. Okay, it says the committee notes that the project's net present value is negative by a significant amount, given that the housing revenue account could secure more homes for the same investment elsewhere. The committee recommends that the executive considers whether the statutory requirement on the council to deliver best value has been met.
Could we add, if judged purely on economic indications, because obviously there are other indications that we should also judge value, not purely in economic terms. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Shall we amend it to?
Best value defined.
But well, best value is defined as financial and non-financial. So in that assessing, I think it does cover what your concern is already in the wording. Shall we read it out again?
If you'd like me to read it out again, I'll read it out again.
Councillor Goodridge, do you want to?
Sorry, could I just have clarification as to the difference between the one we're now discussing and the one we've already passed? Because that one, we clearly were not happy that it was best value, therefore we've come up with the proposal we've already passed. You see what I mean?
The first recommendation you're talking about mentioned best value and said that the executive was recommended to include in the report various figures. And then there was a comment, then there was a comment on the end. Did you include this in what you read out? These items are essential for assessing best value?
Yes,
is
I
that
did
what we're
read that
talking about?
out.
So, I mean, that's just.
We could compress it into one. I see what you're saying.
Well, it
That
just
one's
seemed we as a committee take the view that we're not getting best value in option 2, and therefore we've come up with an alternative which would be best value.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want this microphone on or not?
No. We've been through they're all distinct and different. I'm happy to read them all out again. It's a shame we can't get them all up on the screen. The committee notes that the project's net present value is negative by oh, sorry. No.
Sorry.
The committee notes the project's net present value is negative by a significant amount. Given that the housing revenue account could secure more homes for the same investment elsewhere, the committee recommends the executive consider whether the statutory requirement to deliver best value has been met.
Councillor Merriweather.
Right, can I just get an indication of whether we need to have a vote on this? Is everyone in agreement? Yeah, so let's take a vote. Having heard that, are we, who's for? In favour?
All those in favour.
All those in favour? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? Abstentions? 2 abstentions. So that is carried. Councillor Merriweather.
Thank you, Chair. Clearly this is something that we're going to be discussing tomorrow. So if you could just help me, when we discuss this, as we will, the recommendations as we will, I'd just like some clarification. Everything in this modelling in the NPVs is all done at market, except for the rental stream, which is at 70% of market. Just so that we're all talking the same language, would you want us to assume that the rentals coming in are at market rather than at the 30% discount?
We would like you to assume that they are let on affordable Waverley rent.
Well, I mean, I guess it's almost inevitable then that there will be that's the whole point.
The whole point is that you can acquire at open market value, capital value, significantly more flats, but that then they could be used at a Waverley rent, an affordable Waverley rent. We're all nodding? We're all in agreement?
agreed.
Yes, thanks.
Paying like for like.
And then just moving on before we can move on to the last bit, misleading hoarding and visuals. This is not necessarily a recommendation. I just wanted to make the point that I went past the site this morning and the visuals display housing. And that is not actually what is recommended. So it was my personal recommendation that the hoarding is post haste removed and changed because it's not representing what's actually going to potentially be delivered. So does anyone, I don't think we can really, you've heard it, thank you. Oh, hello, does anyone want to comment? Abby, sorry, no. Oh, Councillor Merriweather.
Well, only that no one's actually made any decisions yet.
Well, they're not going to be houses though, are they? So, and also the press release this morning sent by the council seemed to indicate it was all going ahead. Councillor Gale.
Sorry, from what Councillor Merriweather just said, it seems like nobody really knows what we're going to build then, because the questions just come up that the hoarding shows houses, but we're just looking at this and it's saying 13 flatted accommodation. And yet Councillor Merriweather has just said, well, who knows?
Abby, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the images that you see are of a previous scheme that the council's delivered, so it's indicative only in terms of the quality of the build that the council delivers. You're absolutely right, it's not an example of what we're actually going to build on the site, but it's something to illustrate the quality of the housing that the council delivers.
Okay, well, I don't think that's worth us formulating into a recommendation. We've made the point. I appreciate that. Thank you, Abby. And so I think unless, did we miss anything that people have raised that we might want to form a recommendation? No. Right, let's enjoy discussing this at full council soon, assuming maybe it won't get through the executive. Who knows tomorrow? We just don't know, do we, Councillor Merriweather? So now let's move on to the next agenda item. Thank you very much, everybody. I want to move on to community asset transfers, and I don't know who's staying and who's going. Oh,
We're going to skip that.
so. Oh, thanks, Abby. Oh yeah, we would like just brief update on the commercial. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, so just a really quick update on where we are with the commercial element of 69 High Street. So ETEC started on site in mid-January, and they've been progressing with essentially start with setting up the welfare provision on the site, and then they've started a soft strip out. They'll then be moving on to create site access to the rear and commence full demolition, which we're anticipating will then lead into piling works for the new structure, which will happen in May. We're on track to hand over to loungers in September for them to then complete the fit out ahead of opening later on in the year. They're intending to do that before Christmas.
Can I just double check, because there's the items marked as exempt. Are you intending to be having this part of the discussion in exempt session?
I was intending just to give you a very quick update and then pass on to the next item, if that's okay. Thank you. Yeah, so we're on track to hand over to loungers in September, which was what was forecast. And in terms of programme and budget, we're still on track as was reported in October council meeting.
Thank you, Abby. That's good news. I appreciate that. Does anyone have any comment on that? I think we're just noting that. Thank you. Okay, right. Is it okay? Would you mind moving up and presenting the next piece on community asset transfers? Thank you very much. Ombudsman, oh, I had that one at the end. Do you know what it is? It's because I've had so many things in so many bits of paper. Can we do the Ombudsman at the end and community asset transfers next? Thank you. Really grateful for you to, is there a portfolio holder really for this one? Councillor Merriweather, would you like to introduce, and then we'll hand over to our officers?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm not going to say anything substantive. You have got the hundreds of pages, which are the tip of the iceberg of the work that the officers have put in to this. It's been an extremely popular initiative, and you just can't, I mean, countless hours have been put into this. We've had dedicated resource put aside to doing this. So I wanted to introduce by thanking officers for their really sterling work in getting this turned around as effectively and efficiently as they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Merriweather. I'm sure having reviewed, well, some of us have reviewed the hundreds of papers that some of us weren't sent them or had access to them, but I certainly had a good look at them, and I can see a huge amount of work has gone in. So just want to probably kick off with a recommendation of thanks for all of your work. Are we all in agreement? Yes. Thank you. And then let you present, please. Thank you. Shall we, I mean, I think I don't know how you're planning on presenting it, but obviously we've got three tranches here. Tranche one, which has already passed through the executive, we're doing some retrospective scrutiny of effectively. And then tranche 2 and 3, which are coming, tranche 2 is coming tomorrow, I believe. Is that right? Thanks.
Thank you. I was just going to give a brief overview of what the report contains, because as you will appreciate, it is a very long report with a lot of appendices. But yeah, the CAT report covers the officer's recommendation to the community asset transfer applications that the council has received over recent months, and base those recommendations on how the applicants have addressed the requirements of Waverley's approved community asset transfer policy, whilst also addressing the council's best value duty to secure continuous improvement. As a reminder, the CAT policy was set up and approved in June 2024 and provides criteria by which applications can be considered as meeting the conditions of the policy in line with the requirements of the Localism Act 2011. Each application has been examined via the CAT process, with the report explaining whether the application meets or does not meet the requirements. Each application has also been assessed against the Council's best value duty under Section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 1999, with a considered judgment by officers whether the arrangements that would come into place were the Council to agree to the transfer of these assets complies with this duty. 19 applications received by Farnham, Hazelmere and Godalming Town Councils and Ewhurst and Chiddingfold Parish Councils are considered by officers to be suitable for a recommendation to transfer. 5 assets considered by officers that are not recommended for approval have reasons provided within the report. In addition, the report also provides advice on other asset transfer expressions of interest received that were not progressed to application stage, where it was clear that they did not meet the requirements of the CAT policy or have taken a different course of action outside of the CAT process. Information on these is provided in the report. And then a major factor taken into consideration is the cumulative effect on the Council's green spaces service provision by the transfer of several green spaces and facilities currently managed by the Council within this service. The report discusses these points both on staffing and financial impact and shows how officers consider a net benefit or break-even situation would be the result. The Green Spaces Service, I don't think they're here today, but they have said they have no objection to the transfer of those spaces. And overall, officers considered advice also led to the recommendation to the transfer of the freehold interests rather than granting a long lease to secure the long-term ownership of the asset by the town and parish councils. And lastly, in the recommendation, the report states as part of the next steps that the assets and property officers would go ahead and negotiate and agree final heads of terms. And once those are finalised, that there is a delegation granted to the Assistant Director for Assets and Property to complete the contract to transfer in consultation with the Joint Strategic Director for Finances and Resources. And I think that gives a brief overview, hopefully, of what's contained.
Thank you very much. I think we've set out in earlier, ideally, our line of inquiry here is to understand more about to what extent these applications meet the criteria in the policy, which is set out in the report. So if I may, I'll kick off in terms of asking really sort of what was the process in terms of, so did these parish councils come forward to you, or was there an offer process? How did it all work in terms of kicking it off? I suppose what I'm interested also to understand is how did you determine which ones went first and which ones went last? You know, was there councillor involvement? What was that process?
We dealt with the applications as they came in, basically, and to keep the workflow going, we just we had a process that we followed, and we were asking the town councils for more information. So we just dealt with the work as it came in. So that's how we dealt with it.
Does anyone else have any? Councillor Gale?
I'm Whitley Parish Council as well as being a borough councillor, and there was only 2 items in our parish that really were still owned by Waverley. One we weren't allowed to have, obviously for obvious reasons, but another one, the cost of actually doing this was so high. It was a really small patch of land, but the costs in legal fees alone, and if you went through the first process, the legal fees of doing that, you still weren't guaranteed that you would actually be able to take over that piece of land. So we had to give up, I'm afraid, as a parish council. We just couldn't go ahead. And I just wondered, there's some fairly huge things in here being transferred. There must be some very large sums of money.
Yeah, I see just one moment, I suppose expanding on that question, was there like a sliding scale of fees? Did it, so maybe I'll let the councillors answer first and you can pick up the pieces.
Yeah, we had some very firm advice from the council's lawyers that we were not allowed to subsidise any application. The applicants had to pay. Yeah.
And if I may just add to that, the towns and parishes, lots of them clubbed together in order to efficiently process their legal fees. I had a direct request from all of the towns and parishes that were theoretically going to be involved as to whether we could waive these fees, which is why we got that advice, unfortunately, saying that we weren't able to do that, because it's not a lot in Waverley terms, but it is a lot in certainly small town or parish terms. But that is why certainly Godalming, Farnham and Hazelmere clubbed together to efficiently do their legal costs. And that was something that they reached out to, I believe, every town and parish to see if there was anything they wanted to join on. As far as I'm aware, that also included Whitley, but I'd have to check.
No, they missed Whitley.
Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Hazelmere, I'm going to be very parochial here. Like Whitley, I'm also a town councillor. We've been pushing for the release of Waverley land or assets from way back, I think about 3 years, 4 years, I seem to recall, things like the Hazelmere wreck. I think the work which the officers have undertaken has been pretty well on the whole excellent, because they're underneath a lot of pressure from a large number of local town councils or parish councils. So I would add to your praise, specifically from Hazelmere, that they've done a very supportive work. Thank you very much for that. But interestingly, it's also brought out of the woodwork some bits of misunderstandings about what Waverley thought were assets, but in fact are trusts, of which Waverley is just the trustee. So it's been quite a useful exercise in many respects, but I would emphasize, if the other assets are requested for transfer, could you please try and make this all happen before we get locked into the unitary authority. A lot of the desire to take this on locally is to protect our land and our green spaces in the parishes and town areas from land grabs by the unitary authority to try and, in our somewhat devious suspicions, that they will be taken to try and fund potential loss in the first few years of their existence. And I guess Councillor Follows also has some comments to make on that.
Yeah, adding to that sort of question, maybe what I'd love to know is there a window that we're not now able to do this, and then will that reopen after the local elections? And yeah, I'll let Councillor Follows and then, yeah.
So a couple of things just on that. Whilst there is definitely a motivation, and I can assure you the exec understand that motivation, as to concern that the unitary might sell the assets or redevelop them or do something that changes the nature of them, that actually can't be the basis for any of the decisions that we're taking. We have to do an individual best value judgment. So I can assure you, and probably consider I've been through, myself and Mark have been through the potential unitaries books and budgets more than most others, I share your concern, but none of the reports can say that as its primary reason. There has to be a proper best value judgment. Just in terms of the policy going forward, this was obviously a policy that we wrote originally, I'm going to call it peacetime, before the LGR stuff came into play. That has obviously made sure that we needed to crack on with this a little bit quicker, because A, we've got a pre-election period, but also we've got potential Section 24 duties with the unitary. So whilst this will remain open as a policy and we can consider more assets, firstly, I think the officers need a bit of a break, because frankly, they've had a lot to do here. So I'm going to urge all the towns and parishes to just cool off a little bit. but we'd also then have to factor in the impact of the Section 24 duties, and obviously couldn't process any more. I mean, I don't think we'd be processing any more during the election cycle anyway. Even in the background, that would be pretty unlikely. So, but the policy isn't closed; it's not gone. It just will be slightly limited in the way we execute it going forward.
Councillor Merriweather.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And just to set the stage, there's I want to resist the temptation to think of this as something as a novelty. Our first asset transfer, our first community asset transfer policy was written back in 2019, at the back end of 2019, and assets have been transferred under that policy. Gostree Meadow in Farnham is one that springs to mind. So this isn't something new, but it is certainly something that has attracted, a tsunami really of attention off the back of LGR. And that is why we rewrote the policy and we got on with it to try and make sure it was closed in that window. We have at least 2 councils, possibly 3, possibly even 4, in what will be West Surrey, that are in the process of active asset disposal programmes. Spelthorne and Woking, Spelthorne particularly and Woking for some time, are in asset disposal programmes to generate funds to pay down their debt. As they run dry on assets that are attractive to the market, the new unitary will be under a lot of pressure to look elsewhere.
Thank you. Councillor Goodridge had a question.
Yes, could I ask whether when towns and parishes were refused, it was a mutually agreed decision? In other words, the parishes realised or the towns realised that to comply with the policy, they couldn't comply with it, or it was going to be too expensive, so they pulled out. Was there any situation that has arisen in any of these tranches whereby the towns or parishes and Waverley are at loggerheads or can't agree between them as to whether it's within policy or outside policy, for example?
Do you know the specific of each of them in order to answer that?
I've obviously spent a lot of time on the community asset transfer policy, as has Mark and others, and I am, because I'm a town councillor as well, not able to vote on this tomorrow, so I can speak a bit more freely. There were a number of applications that were put in at the beginning that didn't meet the policy, and a lot of the times they were because the town or parish or Waverley weren't sure of the ownership, and so there was an immediate, well, it doesn't actually count, that kind of avenue. With the ones that have been refused, there's just one general point that applies to all of these. Where officers have recommended a refusal, it is possible for the executive to take a different position if they disagree with it and provide evidence to the contrary. So that's a possibility. They also might choose to defer an item or attach a condition to an item. So all of these are officer recommendations until they go to the exec tomorrow. So alternatives might come out in the mix tomorrow. There are a couple of ones where there has been a discussion as more information has come to light. So the one that I would add there as an obvious one was the Farnham Brightwells one, where there was an application put in by Farnham. The back and forth with Waverley was actually, do you know quite what you're getting into here, because of the overlap with Crest Nicholson and a few things like that. And so there has been some discussions with towns and parishes about elements of that. Another one in there, for example, the Walmer Hill application, there is an element there of an easement required over a road from Surrey County Council, and that's part of why there's an officer recommendation for refusal. I know that the town council has been in discussions with Surrey as to whether such an easement is possible. So you could see a scenario, for example, where that might be approved with a condition for that easement. So there's been a really good dialogue between the towns and parishes, us as senior councillors and our officers. So in every case, I think there's a good dialogue to get to where it's got to.
Thank you. Councillor Gale.
Yeah, as Councillor knows about all these things, could you refresh my memory on why car parks couldn't be transferred?
Councillor Merriweather?
Yeah, they're not community assets. So they wouldn't fall under the policy in the first place. In terms of best value, we could go through an alphabetical list of the reasons why. Just to flesh out a little bit what Councillor Follow said, the leader said a second ago, we are only talking about applications that still have to be decided on tomorrow, that are being considered under the community asset transfer policy. And even those that are, for various reasons, either outside of that policy or have other reasons why officers have recommended not to proceed under the community asset transfer policy, there may be other avenues to follow to get them transferred. And without wanting to prejudice anything, there are a couple there that I hope will go that way.
Thanks. I suppose I was trying to work my way through all of these, and I did try really, but gosh, that was a lot of paperwork. I would love to know really what are the biggest ones really by value. Maybe officers could answer this one just in terms of either you've already passed or going forwards, because it did look to me like the first lot were mainly sort of Godalming and Farnham ones, and haven't really seen much Cranley. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there a reason for that as well? I don't know. Is it just whether they've not come forward?
No, they haven't come forward.
Yeah. So which ones were the biggest ones in, say, Godalming and?
Well, we had external valuations done. So most of the valuations, once they'd taken account of the land and also the costs involved, came back at nil value anyway for transfer.
I suppose by site it would be some of the green spaces. I'm just looking at Lammas lands and things like that. Yeah. No, I'm just wondering which. I suppose I'm just trying to get a sense of which ones have been the more complex for you to investigate and transact and assess for the committee.
Like Walmer Hill, Brightwell's green space.
Yeah, Walmer Hill was one of the most complex ones to deal with, I suppose, because they were looking at it from a site-wide point of view and also taking into account the tenants which were there, which are on the site as well. So, and also with regard to Brightwells, which we've already mentioned before, with regards to the complexities with the developer still being involved on the site. So it's not appropriate time for it to be transferred across to Farnham Town Council.
Okay, that's interesting. Oh, Councillor Davidson might have
Well, I was
another
going to
question.
endorse that. From my understanding of our little niche at the bottom end of Southwest Surrey, every single request has its own little nuances. And it's, I would urge though, if you could possibly get the easement arranged for Walmer Hill, that would be great.
I think Councillor Goodridge, and then I think we'll try and.
Well, it's a bit of deja vu because I remember being on the Godalming Borough Council when Waverley came into existence, and we were talking about the assets between that we wanted to keep, and Waverley insisted on having, or we couldn't keep, and we now probably talking about the same assets to see if we can get round it. Second bite at the cherry, however many years, 1742 years later.
Full circle. There we go, Councillor Goodridge. You've been a councillor that long. I don't think we've brought forward any recommendations in our debate, other than thanks for what has clearly been a very long and process involving a lot of hard work. And I certainly, having read the justifications and the report, can see the level of detail that you've gone into. So I think I want to echo the committee's thanks for all of that work. So thank you. Yeah, agreed. Lovely.
That's your second recommendation to thank officers, so we'll put it in the minutes twice.
Yeah, in the minutes twice. There we go. So good. We thanked you twice. So, and It's only 9 o'clock. There we go. Look at that. Amazing. And we'll move on to what I hope is the final agenda item now, the Ombudsman report, please. Now, I'm just really conscious that I've not even had chance to read it in any level of detail because by twist of fate, we got it at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. So
The appendices.
the appendices, but I would like to offer 5 minutes if people want it to be able to have a look at the appendices, or we can just look at plough through it during debate. Would that be the way to deal with it? Do we have someone to present the Ombudsman report?
Yes, Nicola Hayes is on.
Can I just apologise on behalf of Councillor Long? She's managing childcare this evening, but I think you've got Nicola to present it.
She's online.
Oh, great. Nicola, if you're happy to present, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So the report provides a summary of the complaints that we received in 24-25 that either went to the Housing Ombudsman or the local government and social care ombudsmans, where maladministration or service failure was found against the council. During this time, there were 7 formal determinations, 3 that were from the local government and social care ombudsman, and 4 from the housing ombudsman. The report sets out the details of the complaints, findings against us, and the actions that we've taken to rectify the complaints. We do apologise the paper's not come forward earlier in the committee cycle. This is due to the annual Housing Ombudsman report being received later than usual. It was actually sort of mid-September, and then the scheduling of the committee meetings. So we will do everything we can to make sure it comes forward earlier next year, subject to us receiving those annual reports from the Ombudsman.
Okay, thanks. So I suppose my initial query, having not read the detail in the appendices, was the red flag of the ones being upheld versus the benchmark. Where is that? No. Certainly for the housing. Councillor Councillor Bartolomeus, do you want to talk on that point?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so it's something I've raised a couple of times now in I think 2 of our ONS meetings, that I have recurring cases from constituents where they are thoroughly and determinedly unhappy with how their complaints have been dealt with, really persistent, and we've gone around the sort of the washing machine of going to one officer and then another and then another, and then there's a high turnover of officers, and it really literally takes months and months to get through, and then it's finally dealt with. And as we've seen with some of our super rag color coded performance graphs, it's gone from red up to green in short order. And the phrase I've used in previous meetings, it's as if, and again, no, I'm not casting aspersions, but it's as if there's an element of marking their own homework, because suddenly we've got totally better at complaints. Whereas the constituents that are coming to me are really unhappy with how their complaints have been dealt with. And after sort of 12 months of chasing and chasing, they're then finally referred to the Ombudsman, at which point they kind of give up the will to live. But what I'm seeing here bears out our experience, which is 100% vindication once it goes up to the Ombudsman. And furthermore, a couple of cases, which I think represents 50%, but I could be wrong with that, where we had, what was it, severe maladministration? And so I do wonder, or not just wonder, I think that there could be an issue here where we've been a bit too enthusiastic to get complaints through nice and quickly, which was a valid objective. But I think the evidence shows that we were too hasty to do that, and that the complaints weren't adequately addressed with. And I think this bears it out. It's a theory I've been running for a while, and I think this bears it out.
Yeah, so the point you're making is once it gets to the Ombudsman, they agree in 100% of cases in terms of the landlord performance. That's interesting. Does anyone have any comment they want to make on that?
To check whether that is the case.
Yeah, well, it's in the report.
Sorry, we would just normally present them with a question.
Yeah. So it says here that of the findings, where was that bit in the report where it says 100% of the findings were found? Put your speaker on, Zoe, if that's okay.
Page 83.
Bear with us, yeah.
Pages are different.
Our pad, yeah. As you'll see from the performance report attached, Waverley had a maladministration rate of 100% compared with the national maladministration rate of 77% for landlords of a similar size and type. Would there be any reason for that, Nicola? Maybe perhaps you could shed some light on that.
So I think stats like this one can be slightly difficult. I think it is worth noting we're talking about 4 complaints. So in the proportion of sort of number of complaints received, it's not a huge number. What's also quite difficult with the kind of stats that come through is although they do provide us with a good comparison against other sort of organisations and councils our sort of size, we don't know how many complaints were taken forward for investigation for those other councils. And when you're talking about small numbers, it doesn't take much to kind of sort of sway those percentages. Having said that, it's obviously not a place we want to be in. And I don't think housing are present in the room, but I know they have now they've now got 2 staff to support with complaints in the improvement team at a much earlier stage, so before they get to the Ombudsman. And they've been on quite a journey and particularly learning from our Ombudsman complaints, but also from other councils as well, and the kind of things that are going through there. So it is not something we would expect or hope to see that kind of percentage in these reports next year. In terms of just the point that was raised around the other stats sort of going from sort of green to red or red to green, we do, and the timescales. So we do have set timescales from both ombudsmen to respond to complaints, and that is what we report to ONS through the corporate reporting. So that's what those targets are. So it's not about kind of rushing through the response. It's about whether we meet the targets and deadlines that are set by the ombudsman for those. What I would say though, Councillor Barcolomez, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you and catch up if you do have any kind of things that are being escalated to you. Do feel free to send them through. I'm happy to help.
Thank you. Would you be the correct person to do that then, Nicola, going forward? I know we've all as councillors got, sometimes we never know who's the first person to message and get in touch with on these.
Yeah, what I would say is obviously if it's related to a particular service, then they will be your best bet. Otherwise, I will end up kind of as the middleman. Yeah. If it is related to the complaints process in general and concerns about how it's being handled, then yeah, absolutely, you're welcome to escalate.
That's useful. Thank you. I'm going to pass over to Councillor Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm still on your thunder, Vice Chair. I hope not. I think Nicola, this question for you. I treat complaints to an ombudsman rather like a failure in total quality management. Someone's customer has made a complaint. Part of the response to the issue is what do we do to ensure that kind of complaint does not arise again? In other words, it's looking at the internal processes so it doesn't get to a complaint. That's one aspect of it. I think you covered the other bit, which is responding about what do you do to fix the issue which the complainants raised in the first place. So that I understand that's out. I'm looking more at how do you address the internal processes to ensure that you don't get anybody going to the ombudsman.
Over to you, Nicola.
So if anything does go to the ombudsman and they obviously find against us, they provide some very clear actions and things for improvements as part of that. We are absolutely required to implement those actions and to demonstrate to the ombudsman that we have. So there is a kind of sort of check and balance there, if you like, to make sure that we are definitely improving and changing our processes around that. This is also reported on to sort of the monitoring officer, and as part of this process as well, they get updates every time we get any kind of response back from the Ombudsman, whether that's finding against us or no fault found or no investigation as well. So there's that transparency at a senior level as well of everything that's coming through. So we do make sure that we are learning lessons from what goes to the Ombudsman to make sure that those kind of complaints don't repeat themselves.
Thank you. I think that helps us. I think Councillor Lawton.
Thank you, Nicola. I'm on the landlord services, and just a couple of points. Obviously, we're looking at a report which is 24-25, so it's pretty out of date anyway. So what my question is having seen more recent reports through the LSAB, is it right to say that what we call a level 2 complaint ends up by in the Ombudsman report? Is there a direct correlation to that between level 2 complaints and the Ombudsman, or is there no correlation there? Because I can see, unfortunately, the figures are going up. The more recent figures, which we're not talking about tonight, but going back to Councillor Davidson's point, trying to solve this problem, we can start to see some indications about what's happening more recently. Thank you.
Yeah, so the only correlation will be that a complaint has to have completed our internal complaints process, which is stage 1 and stage 2, before the Ombudsman would investigate it. So for it to reach them, it would have had to have at some point been a stage 2 complaint with us. But it's not a guarantee that a stage 2 would go to the Ombudsman.
Okay, so I mean, it suggests that the level 2 complaints is increasing, but that's not in discussion today because we're looking at 24-25 report. So, okay, thank you.
It feels like we might be reaching a recommendation based on all the things that you've said. Something along the lines of the committee notes the current 100% rate of maladministration found by the Ombudsman in respect of landlord services. The committee seeks assurances of further continuous improvement of the landlord services team and hopes to see future reduction of complaints. Have I missed something there? I think I missed a bit of the essence of what you were saying, Zoe.
Maybe we just monitor, but I am concerned that there was an expedition there for the right reasons, not for bad intentions, for the right reasons, but it resulted in messy complaints handling.
Zoe, would you mind saying the last sentence again, please?
So I think it might just come down to monitoring for now, but that we should note that there was a correlation between an expedition of complaints handling and an increase in constituent satisfaction with how those complaints were handled and with maladministration findings, and that we should keep a watchful eye on that to make sure that in fact complaints are appropriately dealt with and not just timely dealt with.
I'm trying to just make it a recommendation so it actually makes it to the committee.
It doesn't need to be. So the committee this evening committee this evening has chosen to note a number of things and in order that they be recorded in the minutes, and it has made about 5 recommendations to the executive this evening. So if on this matter the committee's view was that you wanted to note something and keep a watchful eye, then that can be publicly recorded in your minutes. But if there's an action that you want the executive to take, that you're suggesting a policy, you would have some input on their future action, then you can make a recommendation to that effect. I haven't heard one come out of the discussion so far.
No. Okay, so I think we are noting, but it is worth noting that our notes don't actually make it to the executive. So yeah, yeah. So I'm sure they do, much like our recommendations. The committee notes the current 100% rate of maladministration found by the Ombudsman in respect of landlord services, and I was going to say, and the correlation in respect of with complaints received into the housing.
I can't type as fast as either of you were speaking. I'm terribly sorry. but
I'm
if
going to
you're-
send this
if
to you
you're
if
gonna
that's
send me
okay.
something, yeah, if you wouldn't mind reading it out before you do that.
Yeah,
before you
no
agree it.
problem.
Thank you.
Bear with me. How about this? The committee notes current 100% rate of maladministration found by the Ombudsman in respect of landlord services, and the
24, 25.
good, yeah, for 24, 25, and the correlation with volume of complaints received into the landlord services team. The committee will continue to monitor this. Continue to monitor carefully. Yeah.
Chair, if a member of the executive was here, what we might often do is check a recommendation with them. I wonder if whether Nicola would like a last chance to comment before you.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Nicola, did you hear that? Would you have any or any suggestions yourself?
Apologies, I could only partly hear Alex because he didn't have his microphone on. Yeah, I think your recommendation is probably along the right lines. I think it's worth keeping a check and balance on where we are for next year's report, and in particular how that translates to maladministration findings against the council. Would be my suggestion.
Thank you very much. Right, I'm just tweaking it and then you can all go home in a minute. The committee notes the current 100% rate of maladministration found by the Ombudsman in respect of landlord services for 2024-25 and the correlation with the volume of complaints received into the landlord services team. The committee will continue to monitor performance of the landlord services team carefully.
Just take out the word current, because it's actually 2 years ago. 24, 25 is a.
Or 25.
You just started by saying about the.
Oh, yeah.
Current.
Thank you. Done. Right. Do we all agree? Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. I'm going
Any
to
abstentions?
ask, there's no abstentions, no.
Agreed by general assent, so that's
No.
fine.
And meeting closed. Thank you.
We agree on that.
We agree. Thank you, everyone.
Would you be so kind as to email that to us, please?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.